What is up, guys? I'm George Mossey. This is the Family Chantel Season 4, Episode 10 podcast recap. Go ahead and grab something to drink and a snack. Let's go over this episode, unpack it, and see if we can come across something you might have missed on this episode of the Family Chantel. Pedro arrives in the Dominican Republic and he goes straight to the hotel that they always stay at, him and Chantel, and he finds her laying by the pool and he confronts her. He feels like Chantel's trip to the Dominican Republic is insincere. He actually feels like she doesn't listen to him, and she is only there to take advantage of the situation by buying his mom Lydia Gucci glasses and actually trying to get on her good side and only telling one side of the story, trying to make herself look as though Pedro is the problem. This conversation obviously turns into an argument where Chantel actually takes Pedro's passport and demands that he sits down and has a conversation with her about their marriage and actually talk about the problems that they have instead of arguing. This does not go well. Pedro eventually gets his passport back and says that he needs to speak to his mother first before he can have any conversation with Chantel whatsoever. It appears once again all lines of communication are closed. In a different part of the DR, Nicole meets her bestie Karima for a brow appointment where she fills Karima in on all the drama going on between Chantel, Pedro, and her mom Lydia. She does not fill Karima in on any of the information regarding Alejandro and the pregnancy and the miscarriage, but she is keeping all of that a secret as of right now in order to keep the peace. But actually, she does go over the things that happened with Chantel and Lydia and how Chantel showed up unannounced to her mother's home and had a conversation with her and actually said that they're having problems. And this actually opens up a door for Karima, because if you guys remember this infamous scene with Karima back a few seasons ago, a dance scene in the Dominican Republic where Pedro picks up Karima and does a dance move with her on his lap. This scene has been infamous throughout the season, and apparently Karima has strong feelings for Pedro, and she feels that she's always meant to be with him at some point, but she was letting time take its course. Has time actually taken its course? So at this point, we know that Karima is seeing this as an opportunity to move in on the guy that she's had her eye on since she was a teenager. Karima also feels the idea that Chantel, Pedro, and Alejandro all being in the Dominican Republic at the same time is a recipe for a world war, and she can't imagine what all is going to take place with them all being together at the same time. Back in Atlanta, Thomas and Karen are doing a date night, and we learn that they have been together 37 years. That's right, 37 years. Congratulations to Thomas and Karen on such a long-standing marriage and relationship. And the key to that is patience, kindness, and understanding. And they actually talk about doing a marriage retreat for Chantel and Pedro. And I feel like anyone who could teach love and what it means to stay together for the long run would be Thomas and Karen. During the car ride to their date night, Thomas is trying to figure out what exactly has taken place in Pedro and Chantel's marriage, where one day, out of nowhere, seemingly having no problems, they now have massive amounts of problems and can't seem to get along or even sleep in the same house. Karen feels that she has an idea of what it might be, and I'm gonna try to explain it to you the best way I can. It's called Swanky Panky, and it is actually something that a lot of women have told Karen about. And they brought their boyfriends over from the DR, and they were together 5 to 7 years, and all of a sudden their behaviors changed, meaning the guy started treating the girl extremely horribly, and the marriage ended up falling apart. Now, she doesn't know or can prove that this is what's happening with Pedro, but she says that it seems very similar to what she was told about in the past. On a FaceTime call with her mom, Chantel is trying to pretend that she is in Arizona at a marriage retreat while she is actually in the DR in a beautifully air-conditioning hotel room. Karen has questions about the activities and things going on at the marriage retreat, and Chantel seems very unprepared to answer these questions. In fact, having a hard time lying to her mother, she decides to end the call early, because she knows if she gives away any cue that she is not in Arizona and she's in the Dominican Republic, Miss Karen will be on the very first smoking plane and will take over the situation like she usually does. Pedro meets with his mom to discuss his side of the story and actually ask her why exactly was she so open to letting Chantel in her home and listening to her in general, because he feels that that relationship was severed so long ago. And he also feels that it might be a little unfair that she was able to have a conversation with Lydia without him being there. Lydia explains that the only reason why she accepted Chantel's request to come inside was because she wanted to know exactly what was going on, hear Chantel's side of the story so she could have the information needed to actually help Pedro. Pedro explained that his issues are with Chantel and her goals and her work ethics. And working 3 days, having 4 days off, he feels that she just doesn't want to do enough. And he feels that she wants to hold him back and that her goals are already set and she's accomplished them and she has no more motivation to do more. He feels since they already own a home, they already have cars, and they already have careers, she doesn't want to do more with her life. Pedro seems to be at the point where he wants to continue to grow and continue to work at growing his abilities and accomplishments. Lydia proposes that they have a sit down. Chantel, Pedro, and Lydia being the mediator, and they discuss what's going on in their relationship and see whether or not this relationship can be saved. Now, of all people to be a mediator, I don't feel like Lydia will be able to be impartial in the situation. Her stake is with Pedro. It's always been with Pedro. She only has 2 kids, and those 2 kids are the most important things to her. So I don't know that she will be able to sit at a table with the 2 of them and be able to be impartial and give honest opinions on what would help each person in that situation. Pedro decides this conversation sit down will be what is the determining factor of whether or not he will make the decision to stay in this marriage or go on with the separation. There's a lot riding on this, and it kind of seems unfair because we know that Lydia will definitely be on Pedro's side because she always has been. So whether or not this is gonna go fair or good, we are waiting to see. Pedro heads back to the hotel to tell Chantel that the conversation sit down that he's decided to have with his mom and Chantel needs to be done and get her to agree with it. This conversation also leads to a huge fight because Pedro feels Chantel badmouthed him to his mother, and she only told him the information that was needed to make her feel and seem as though she was the victim and Pedro was the one in the wrong. That doesn't rub Pedro the right way, and he feels that he was misrepresented in that storyline. Chantel eventually agrees to the sit down, but she doesn't really have a lot of faith in the process. She knows that Pedro holds his mother Lydia's opinion in very high regard, but she does not, and she also doesn't feel that his mom will be impartial and give the best and honest information to them to help this situation move forward. Lydia decides that she would recommend Pedro and Nicole fix things in their relationship while he is in the DR, which is long overdue because if you can remember, Nicole had a huge pageant that she was a part of and she placed in, and Pedro was not there, not even in text message or phone call to congratulate her. Nothing was said between the 2 of them. So Pedro decides to agree to have a sit down with Nicole, and Nicole decides to apologize for her behavior of what happened the last time that he was in the DR with Chantel and her family. Pedro is kind of reluctant to accept her apology, but since there's so much going on in his life and he misses the idea of having his sister there and having her support and having someone that he can talk to and lean on, he goes on and accepts Nicole's apology and is ready to move forward and put things behind them. Everyone is questioning Nicole's motives in this situation because right after her apology, she decides to talk about Chantel and whether or not he's thinking about a divorce. And right in the same statement says, why would you have faith in Chantel? She's dishonest. You should simply leave her. We know that Nicole has always had a vendetta to remove Chantel from Pedro's life. And I feel like she is only looking at this as an opportunity to make that happen. Now, we don't know Nicole's actual motives and intentions, but we do know that she wants to be there to support Pedro. But by Nicole's meaning of supporting Pedro, that may just mean encouraging a divorce. All right, guys, that's all that happened on this episode of The Family Chantel, Season 4, Episode 10. Next week, we will be watching the sit down between Pedro and Chantel with the mediator, Lydia, and see how this situation pans out. As always, guys, remember these are real people, real things going on in their lives, so what we say online about them matters. Be kind, be loving, and understanding. I'm George Mossey. Thanks for joining us. Make sure you live tweet with me every Monday night for The Family Chantel, and we'll talk to you all really soon.